Hello, everybody. My name's Amy Kean. I'm a partner at the Innovations Consultancy and Us, and co-founder of DICE, which is a self-regulatory charter that promotes greater and more genuine national representation at events and conferences. So I am so excited about today. Diversity and inclusion. It's a more common phrase now. I checked on Google Trends earlier today, and searches for the phrase diversity and inclusion in the UK have doubled since last month. And in business, it's been on the agenda for a while, and of course, it's a job as well. But is it enough to employ a D&I specialist to essentially fix the bias within your business? Is it one person's job, or is it everybody's responsibility? And honestly, how huge is the task at hand? I have some bloody brilliant panelists today, Serena, Avalon, Dino and Anthony, who are going to thrash this out for us. I'll ask them to introduce themselves in a second, but as a lead-in, my first question is about a tweet I saw the other day. A woman called Belinda Smith said, "But why is the CEO not the Chief Diversity Officer?" It's a good question. Would that not be more powerful and progressive? Panel, what are your thoughts on that? Avalon, do you want to go first?
Yeah, hi, I'm Avalon Thompson. I'm the Future Talent and D&I Manager at MediaCom, so thank you for having me. I think it's an interesting point of view, and obviously the CEO is a really important part. They have to, be on board with the strategy. They have to fully understand everything that's going on, and it has to be their passion as well. But they just don't have the time. I don't think they have the time to be able to commit, to have the conversations, to get into the data, to really fully understand what is going on, at every level within the company in order for us to, drive inclusion and be fully representative. So I really do believe that it is the CEO's main responsibility, or one of their main responsibilities, but a D&I, lead, a D&I manager is really important to really get under the skin of what is going on in the company in order to drive change and in order to make sure that we are inclusive.
Yeah, absolutely. So the CEO is kind of like a sponsor.
Yeah.
Serena, what are your thoughts?
So I think that's quite an interesting tweet, actually. I do think I think it's also about organisations really embedding D&I into their business strategy. And if you see it like that, therefore, it makes more sense for the CEO to almost have that as part of their remit in many ways. But yeah, I think it's really problematic to just think that there could be one person within an organisation and they're supposed to have all this pressure on their shoulders. And I think often is the case, you hire in a D&I director or manager, lead, and then actually everyone else gets quite lazy. They just, but this one individual is going to do all the work. So I think it's about an organisation realising that this is something that needs to be shared evenly across the whole organisation, but their D&I manager or director is there just to really almost be a project manager in some ways.
Amazing. Dino, what are your thoughts?
Hi there. So I'm Dino Myers-Lamptey. I head up my own company called The Barber Shop, which is a strategic creative company. So I think that it is the responsibility of the CEO. And I would say that, if people aren't the main responsibility of the CEO, then there's a bit of a problem. Yes, you have officers and people that have responsibility for making certain things happen, but strategy has to be led by the CEO. And the CEO has to set targets, and they have to be, rewarded or punished by their inability to hit the targets in this very important space. It varies company by company, but ultimately in the industry that we're in, it's about people and about talent and getting the most out of people and talent. And I think as soon as you carve off the responsibility for something so fundamental as inclusion in a company, then you're not doing your job. You don't understand your people.
Dino, can you name, sorry to put you on the spot, I'm going to do it a lot. Can you name any CEO who's absolutely smashing it in this respect?
Yeah, good question. There was, I don't think there's anyone that can say that they're hands down smashing it, because, there's so much to do. There's no one out there that's got the statistics to prove that they are smashing it. There are people out there that got statistics to prove that they do much, much better than other people out there. Avalon works for MediaCom, and I think there's been some good announcements. There's some good figures there, but also with every release of information, there's also the hands up going, we're not actually brilliant necessarily at it, but we're better than probably a lot of people out there. And I think that actually the worst case scenario is there's a lot of CEOs out there that won't even publish their data, that won't even ask the questions at the right levels, so people can be the judge of whether they're smashing it or not. So I'm reluctant to kind of name specific names because I don't think anyone's got there yet. However, I think there are a few standouts that are doing the right thing and opening up to getting there.
Yeah. Anthony, can you name any CEOs?
Yeah, I think, yeah. So I just to kind of introduce myself, for my day job, I work in commercial innovations at the Telegraph. So it's kind of my role to look at how we can demonstrate effectiveness in a kind of subs first, reader first environment. And then for my gay job, I also chair our LGBT group. I co-founded Out Loud, which is the Telegraph's LGBT group. And then also to keep me out of trouble, I chair a group called InterMedia UK, which is a network organisation of about 25 plus media companies. And it's kind of how we can work collectively to sort of create a media environment that's inclusive, but also look at how we can promote and encourage kind of good, authentic representation in content. So yeah, that's kind of that's what I do. But I think it's interesting to your original question. My thought on what that meant was that actually, yes, it is the CEO, but I think Serena made a good point of this, that it's not just putting it on one person. In order for a company to have a really good, effective culture, it needs to really be the responsibility of every single person to take responsibility. And I think that D&I initiatives quite often fall over when people assume that it's somebody else's responsibility to make it happen, when it is a cultural based thing, and cultures only change when everybody buys into it and everybody plays their part in making that work. And that effectively starts with the CEO. That has to start with the CEO. So there's no point in a CEO going, okay, tick a box, I've got somebody in to like look after that, and therefore I can go on about my business. They need to make sure that they make it their business to do whatever it is they do as well. I think it's been, in terms of naming CEOs, his name escapes me, so I apologize, but I've seen recently in some of the work that we're doing, so we're really focused at the moment on looking at supporting trans rights. There's obviously a lot of proposed changes to the Gender Recognition Act that are kind of being discussed at the moment. And it's been really great to see how different organisations have come forward to support that. And in particular, the CEO of the Financial Times, I noticed that he's really stepped up and just kind of, really stepped in and said, yeah, this is something that I support. He's not left it up to somebody else from HR to represent that support. He's taken that fully on himself. It's been really great. I really just want to give them and him, and so I apologize that I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but I want to sort of pat him on the back for that. But also, I have to look to my own CEO, Nick Hugh, who's sort of been on this journey of transformation at the Telegraph. He has established a D&I initiative at the Telegraph. We now have an active role of a D&I representative that's a kind of a fully paid for role. But actually, I think it comes from a combination of two things. You need to have somebody there that is your spokesperson externally, talking about the work that you're doing, is able to articulate that in the right way and really understand everything that's going on in the world of D&I. But also you do need those ERG groups internally as well. They're so important to kind of drive authentic change, because that's coming from a grassroots level. So it does really need to be approached from those two directions. You can't have one or the other. And so, they need to work alongside each other to really be effective. So, yeah, and actually, Nick, as an example of, facing those challenges, it's not about papering over the cracks and saying everything's perfect because we've got a D&I initiative now. It's about saying, no, this is a long-term change that we need to address issues around our gender pay gap. We need to address issues around our ethnicity pay gap. We need to address representation within our company, and actually acknowledging you've got a problem. It's like any problem. Acknowledging you have a problem in the first place is kind of half the battle. So yeah, that was kind of would be my my thoughts on that.
Sorry, Amy. I was just going to add that I think it's worth mentioning that there are a lot of CEOs' names that we could pick off, the list. Certainly in the industry, the open pledge letter that was signed. But the thing is, we all know that not all those pledges have necessarily been fulfilled by all those names on that list. And I think that the important thing to differentiate is there is the awareness phase, which is, almost what putting your name down on a piece of paper or letter is about, just kind of like saying, yeah, great, cool, I'm in. But then there's the action and the accountability of it. So, even go so far as saying, okay, we're looking into an ethnicity pay gap, until you've done it and published it, then you haven't done it. It's just words. And I think that, culture and inclusion only changes when the metrics prove that it's, that it's changed. And not even enough people measure but the really inclusion and engagement between different ethnicities within the company. Not a lot of people do that. So they can't possibly know how included people are or not.
Actually, I want to talk about this. I want to talk about kind of on the subject of the open letter that you mentioned, Dino. How much do you think having a D&I person internally who's a spokesperson for those matters is tokenistic or has been tokenistic, or in many cases has been a PR play? Avalon, what are your thoughts?
I mean, I would hope that people aren't signing that letter, reactively, and that they were doing that with good intention, and that they were actually, putting their name to that paper, because even if they hadn't started their journey, that they were really committing to do so. At MediaCom, we have had a strong focus on inclusion for a number of years. In terms of the industry, I think we are doing quite well. But we have realised that there is more to be done, and also there's more to share. So we can't sit back and say, yeah, we're doing well, we've signed our name to this pledge, and then keep it all in house. We really need to not only what we failed at as well, or not failed at, but not done as well at, is internally expressing to everybody, going to every department meeting, telling everybody what our strategy is, making sure everyone knows it's part of their KPIs. It's not just the people team, the D&I manager, the CEO, the leadership team. It's part of everyone's role. And I think what we need to do now as well is, what we are doing well, we need to share. As an industry, we need to all be better at inclusion, diversity inclusion. So yeah, I would really hope that people are not, didn't just put that name down to that list and think that was enough. And if they needed help, in order to start their journey, that they were reaching out to people. And we at MediaCom are, quite happy to then share what we're doing. And I'm sure other agencies and companies would be doing the same. So yeah, I hope it wouldn't be.
And actually, Mark Reed from WPP tweeted a thread on all of the kind of amazing things they're going to be doing.
Yeah.
In terms of equality, do you think every agency boss should be doing that, kind of putting their heads above the parapet and saying?
Yeah, I do think they should, because inclusion is the heart of everyone feeling like they belong at a company, and everyone looks to their leader to see what kind of company are you running, what kind of people are you trying to bring in, are you encouraging diversity of thought? So if you can't look to your leaders to at least be waving the flag for you, then who is? So it's really important. Kate, our MediaCom CEO, Kate Rowlandson, has been quite active at doing that, and Mark has as well. And I think it's really key for people at all levels in the building, in the business, to be able to see that they're, the leaders are looking out for them, are thinking at every level, how can we progress people? How do we reduce churn? They're thinking about inclusion at every point. So it really is important for them to do that.
But sorry, Amy, I just want to say that I don't think it's just thinking about inclusion for inclusion's sake, though. If you don't believe that it's actually going to better your company, then don't do it. But make it clear that you're not doing it. Make it clear that you don't care about it. So talent can make the right choices about where they want to work, where they're going to progress. We're in an industry that relies upon the fuel of people, the talent of people, and the energy of people. And anyone that runs a successful company or has been at a company through a successful period will know that the difference of it working where people work together and worked for that company and for those clients, rather than not wanting to be there and basically just counting down the hours that they were there. So, you know, better places to work are more profitable places to work. So this is about making your organization, you know, more reflective, more equal, a fairer, better place to work that will give you much better results in the end of it. The one thing I would say about the challenge of the diversity and inclusion kind of officers and positions in the role of the CEO is that ultimately the CEO employs, you mentioned it before, you know, employing or appointing this person, they report into the CEO. So, you know, there is a natural challenge there. You know, you're reliant upon the personality of that individual to be very challenging, potentially, to really carry the flag and fight those fights, which a lot of people in that position don't necessarily feel comfortable to do to their boss. So unless, you know, and it's not to say that role, you know, shouldn't exist, but the CEO should be leading the mission of that role, and the D&I person should be helping them fulfill that mission.
Absolutely. So on that role, Serena, you said that a D&I person should kind of be like a project manager. What do you think that job looks like? What's the job description for a D&I specialist within a company?
The job description. So the job description, by the way, I hadn't actually introed myself. So yeah, my name's Serena Abbassi, and I'm an independent equity, inclusion and diversity consultant and facilitator, but formerly M&C Saatchi's worldwide head of culture and inclusion. That's such a long title it was. I'm going to have to say that anymore. So what does it look like? That's a really big question. It's dependent on the organisation. It's dependent on the level of power that individual's going to have. That will determine its remit, and that will determine its job description. So I can't really give you an answer to that, but ultimately it's down to how much power that person has and how many resources that person has as well. So not just in regards to financial resources, but do they also have the opportunity to build the team? And I think also, you know, Anthony spoke about employee resource groups and the importance of those. Absolutely, they are fundamental to inclusion and people feeling like they actually belong to an organisation. However, I'm so alarmed by how many organisations do not give the people that lead their employee resource groups the power and also the resources, and allow them the time that they need. So this isn't just something that they're bolting onto their massive workload already. So I think those roles need to be really considered as roles. Like, in my opinion, they should get more of a salary based on the added work that they need to do, in my opinion. And I think it's also, if that isn't the case, then organisations need to afford them 10% of their working week towards it, and that is just recognised. I've slightly kind of gone on a tangent there, but to answer your question, there's no easy answer, and it's very much dependent on power and remit that determines the job description.
Oh, amazing point though, Anthony. It takes a very special person to create change anywhere, let alone in a massive business. What do they need? What's the job?
I think they need to know fundamentally that you know that the company is behind them. So, like, I think Dino made the point that actually you're already starting with an uphill struggle if you come to the point where, you know, you're coming in and you start people thinking, oh, it's fine, we've put someone in D&I, therefore job done, we can all go about our jobs now. I think you need to know that the CEO down recognises the need to develop the culture of that business and make it more inclusive and make it more representative. And so that's half the job done. And I think, yeah, it really does depend on that company. I think it's pretty specific to the challenges of that company. What's your starting point? Do you already have established the ERG groups? And I think it's just basically being a figurehead and sort of taking the slack from a lot of that, you know, being that person that can potentially find all that resource, be that sort of subject matter expert that you can guide people in the right way, and you know, inspire people and influence people, be an external figurehead for all of the fantastic work that's being done internally and making sure that that's being fairly represented. But yeah, you know, I have seen organizations where I think people are in that role, and it's so frustrating that you can see that there's a direct conflict between what they're trying to do and they're not necessarily getting the backing. And I don't think it's because people are against it. Like, who would be against a nice inclusive environment? That's some kind of psycho. But actually, it's more a case of really recognizing how important it is to the business and the progression of that business and how successful that business is. That's the key element there, is that you need to make sure that CEO, if the CEO is like, yeah, whatever, just get on with it, like stop bothering me with these new policies or whatever, they need to get it and they need to understand it. So I think the job description, I would be less concerned about the job description, more if I was going into that role thinking, are you for real? You for real want to do this, right? You actually want to make change here. Like, this isn't just you sticking me in this role so that everybody can go about their day job kind of thing. That's my thoughts on that.
Can I just add something to it? I think also, just to add to that, I think for me, in the role that I was in at MC Saatchi, I saw myself as almost like an internal, I was agitating. I got to take my activism into a corporate space, and it was incredible. But there's only so far you can do. There's only so much change you can do with that. It's great to enlighten people, to challenge people, but you come to a point where there needs to be massive commitments made. And as Dino mentioned, it's great. There's an acknowledgement phase that many people are in, but we have to transcend past that. And actually, to transcend past that requires giving up power. And that is the simple answer. It requires giving up power. It requires not being right all the time. It requires actually just really choosing not to be the author of everyone else's story and let other people tell their stories. And that is a very uncomfortable reality for many people.
Sorry, I think there'd be applause if we were in a real life environment. So let me just do it. I feel like this segues this really nicely onto, if it's okay, a subject about mental health, because I think there's a lot of pressure. I mean, you said yourself, Serena, like, to be the agitator. Christ, that's a hard job. You have to be resilient. The marketing chief at Unilever, Aileen Santos, described this role as pushing water up a hill. And I can imagine. Do you think it's too much pressure to rely on just one person or a small team to change beliefs and behaviours, like ingrained stuff of the people that they work with every day? Mentally, surely that's a lot. Avalon, what do you think?
I mean, yeah, it is a lot. I think, the people that do the job and are committed and are the agitators and activists, they are kind of committed to this, but it is a lot. And sometimes, trying to change that mindset, constantly trying to get people to understand, it's a challenge. I think, over the past 4 weeks since George Floyd, people are slowly waking up to the fact that there is a system of oppression and it's all brand new to them. So having to start explaining that from the beginning is hard. But you would hope that there's that change, and you start seeing that change. And I have started seeing that change in people being perceptive, people realizing that actually I realize this is part of my job as well now, and I need to go and help educate my teams, challenge myself, and then challenge others. So you do start to see the progression, but it is hard work, and you do need a strong team around you, and that's why those CEOs and those leaders are important. But it can be hard work.
I think it's nearly impossible in terms of, and I think that the mental health demands are far too high to expect individuals to take on the responsibilities of companies. You're talking about cultural change within an organization, and let's just say this wasn't about equality. Let's say it was about something smaller, like just work-life balance, for example. If you've had any experience of doing something like the Sunday Times Best 100 Companies survey, you'll realize that it's a very thorough engagement survey that will pick out things like people's slight unhappiness about the hours they're working or their well-being generally. And if you're trying to get further up the rankings, then you set about to try and work out, okay, why is this? How can we improve this? What can we do while we still keep productivity in the company? And you get very kind of granular and meticulous about it, but you realize just how hard it is to change simple little things like that. But it's a whole company effort. And what you need is you need the complete, like, you know, CEO leadership signed up to the benefits of it. Otherwise, it's never going to happen, because some of those initiatives that need to just change the dial a tiny amount require such energy from the whole company, and also requires sometimes, you know, policies to be made or things to be said from top down that suddenly change the picture of what people are perceiving. And then that's just, you know, that's just things like that, you know, that are quite universal. When it comes to something like, you know, inequality, you know, which is, you know, things like whether it's homophobia, racism, whatever else, you know, these are biases that really just don't really show in the open. You know, so it's so difficult to get to the bottom of really understanding where your blockages are in your companies. You know, and if you're a company of a certain size, you know, it's multiplied in terms of how difficult it is to really understand those issues. And so it's nearly impossible. The thing you have to do is, like any kind of cultural change, is the leader has to absolutely be swearing by the need for that thing, and you have to bake it into your values. You have to start to look at independent auditing of your standards and your quality measures. You know, the role of the person that is hired into the position in D&I, they almost have to be unsackable to some degree, because you almost have to give them these targets and go, look, you know, if we don't achieve these targets, you still have your job, you know, but I'll get sacked, you know, in terms of, you know, you've got to just make sure I hit these targets. That's almost the permission you've got to give them, because otherwise the job is I think is far too difficult. It's nearly impossible.
It's so personal as well, isn't it? Like my personal experience, like coming into supporting D&I initiatives and working, is you become that central focus for people to bring their issues. You take those issues on, and of course you do, because it's not a business problem. It's people that have got an issue, and you're trying your best to make them feel included or kind of resolve, you know, a certain way that they're feeling, you know, that something's they're being prejudiced against, whatever it might be. And you can't solve it in a normal business way. It's not like you go, okay, well, if we do this X, Y, and Z, then you're going to go to bed tonight feeling like you're suddenly belonging in this company. Like, no, like you make those policy changes, and then it's a long progress of getting somebody feeling like re-enfranchised with that business or that team, whatever it might be. And you kind of have to really, it's, you know, the two things that I really learned was you can't take it all on yourself. And actually, to Serena's point, it's about empowering other people. So if somebody has an issue, it's about supporting them being part of the solution, not saying, okay, I'm going to take your problem on for you and solve it for you. And making sure that you're empowering other people to be part of that change. But also it's about really teaching yourself to cut off as well, because there have been times when I've been like lying in bed at night, like worrying about how we're going to solve this problem, how we're going to solve that problem. That doesn't help anyone. It's really difficult to sort of, you know, because it isn't just a standard business issue that you're solving. It is people's lives and the way, you know, and they take those problems home with them. So it's hard for you to not do the same.
We're kind of drawing to a close. This session has flown. I kind of want to end with a response from everyone. I mean, look, we can't predict the future, of course, but all of this stuff is being put in place for a reason, and that reason is change. But how fast is that change going to happen? And do we need to get quicker? And do we need to put more pressure on? So I want to ask every single one of the panelists, where do you think we'll be? And where do you hope we'll be in a year's time when it comes to D&I? Oh, Avalon?
Big
Oh,
question.
just throw it at you.
Well, I really do think people are starting to take notice now, maybe because they were forced to when they hadn't done before, and they're realising that change needs to happen quicker. So I would hope that things are moving forward for the whole industry, for, you know, everyone to be able to move things forward, and that things are actionable and people are actually making sustained change, and it's not going to be just a quick fix or a launch and leave or whatever else you want to call it. So yeah, my hope is that things are moving forward at a quicker pace now, because people have started to realise that we need to actually do things in order to move things forward, and we need to do it now.
Serena, what are your thoughts?
Where do I think the industry is going to be?
Where do you think and where do you hope?
Do you know what? I think it just depends on individual businesses. I don't have any projections for the industry as a whole. I'm optimistic. However, I like to think I'm not delusional at the same time. So I think it's very much just down to whether the CEOs really see this as being a priority for them and actually see that this really is their business strategy.
Dino, final thoughts from you?
Yeah, final thoughts. I would say in 12 months' time, I'm going to paint a much more optimistic picture, mainly because I think that in 12 months' time, the agency world would have released their figures so everyone can see their diversity numbers. One way or another, those numbers will come out. And I think they will solve their problems by lack of representation at the highest levels by appointing non-execs straight away, even if they haven't got the people in the pipeline. And I would say that will begin to force through cultural change within the organizations. And this is perhaps a dreamy, optimistic point of view, which, let's just say, is probably very unlikely to happen across the board. But the question to everyone is, why wouldn't it? Why wouldn't every agency release their figures right now? Why wouldn't every agency correct the problem at board level by employing non-execs right now, and work on the longer term, more sustainable but difficult changes that need to happen throughout the organization to change the culture and inclusion throughout? I'll say right now that I think in 12 months' time, those things would have happened because it's an easy thing to do.
And Anthony?
Yeah, so there's kind of two main thoughts I have. I'm really concerned about kind of what's going on at a government level in terms of how that's going to impact culture. If I'm honest, that makes me really worried, because it looks like there's a lot going on that's kind of going to give validation to sort of a lot of, homophobia, transphobia, misogyny, that I'm concerned that's going to have a cultural impact. But to end on a positive, I'm really excited about the increased exposure of things like keyword blocking, kind of impacting diversity of content creation, things like the Facebook boycott, which I think is really showing that the industry, or the advertising industry, is recognized that trust levels are at an all-time low. They have a real kind of responsibility and role to play in representing authentically, and I think they're going to really kind of step up to the plate and start to look at how we can use our technology for the better, and stop allowing it to just kind of dilute, our kind of content into these sort of, linear kind of representation lines. Yeah, that makes sense. I don't know.
Perfect sense. That was a cracking session. Thank you so much. I think, I guess, as a conclusion, if anyone watching, if you're going to employ a D&I specialist, support them, let them agitate, and make them unsackable, which I think is pretty punchy, but actually absolutely essential. I swear to God, I could listen to you guys all day, but I know you're busy people, so we have to finish. But thank you everyone for watching, and thank you to my bloody brilliant panelists. Can we applaud?